Hey, Ecology, it's Miss Shattery here to answer some of your questions about your test on Tuesday. So, first couple of questions I had were about the format of the test rather than content questions. So, let's start with those. Your test is going to be 15 questions long. 8 of those 15 questions are multiple choice, looking at some of the different concepts we've examined throughout the semester. The others are going to be some short answers. Some of them by your response to a multiple choice question. Some of them are going to be connecting those bigger concepts. I would encourage you to take a look at how much the question is worth to kind of indicate what level of detail you need. So a 1 point question can probably be sufficiently answered in a sentence or two, but a 2 or 3 point question probably needs a little bit more information, a little bit larger connection. Make sure to read those questions carefully. If it asks you for examples, give specific examples. Okay. Also had somebody ask if you had to take the test all in one day. Technically, no. It's okay if you need to space it out a little bit based on your schedule. But remember, it is a Google form, which means that if you click out of that screen for whatever reason, you will lose all of your information that you put in so far. So if you're going to take it over 2 days, number one, try and keep that tab open. But if you're worried about your computer shutting down, things like that, like make another doc and just put your answers in as you go so that when you go back to finish the test the next day, you can just say, oh yeah, for number one, I put Q, and for number two, I put K. And then you can just kind of do that quickly and fill those in. The order of your questions doesn't change no matter how many times you open the test, so not a big deal. On that note, make sure that you are logged into your school Google account when you take the test, because I use your email addresses to help make sure I know whose test it is. Okay, so that's format of the test. It's 20 points. Not sure if I mentioned that before. So those are those questions. Other questions I got asked were some content things, and Skylar wanted to know whether or not we were still doing The Lion King, or she assumed it was out. That's a correct assumption, Skylar. Unfortunately, as much as I was looking forward to our Lion King experience together for our review, obviously, if we're not all together, I can't share that video with you because legal reasons. But if you have The Lion King and you want to watch it while you're doing your review Kahoot today, by all means, go ahead. It's a great movie, both the new version and the classic version. Do a really nice job of kind of showing some of the concepts of succession, and even looking at kind of balance in food chains and things like that. So feel free to watch it if you want. I highly recommend. But obviously, we can't do that together, unfortunately. Um, let's see. So content questions, there were two major content questions that got asked. The first one is about biomes. So what kind of biome leads to the most diverse life? The one that has the best conditions. And what are the best conditions? Heat and moisture. Okay. We all need, every living organism on this planet needs to be in the right temperature range, and it needs to have enough water to live because everything on this planet needs water anyway. So the biomes that are going to have or meet those requirements the most are going to be a lot of tropical ones. The best one, most diversity of life, is usually going to be the tropical rainforest. It's warm, it's wet. That's really good conditions for a lot of life, but especially life we tend not to think about, like microbes and parasites and all the little stuff that really is the bulk of the species on the planet. And it makes sense if you think about it logically. Like a biome, like a desert, especially a hot and dry desert, is going to have not a lot of different living things there and not a lot of living things overall. And the things that do live there tend not to be very big because there's not the resources to support that. Okay, so that's that question. The other question that got asked was, how does evolution tie into, sorry, I'm just checking my note card, ecological succession? So, ecological succession, as we know, is looking at how an ecosystem changes over time, whether that's the development of a brand new ecosystem, or, sorry, Mr. Yan is distracting me with our cat, or whether that is a pre established ecosystem that's changing little bits all the time, or a lot of bits. Thank you, Mr. Yan. This isn't distracting at all. Hi, Harper. Or whether it's changing like really significantly and really suddenly, right? So change is really what drives evolution. As the characteristics in an ecosystem change over time, different qualities about an organism can become more or less beneficial to them. Like, say you live in a really cold place and you've got a really thick fur coat, okay? And that cold place starts to get warmer and warmer over time. Eventually, having a really thick coat in a desert, for example, isn't going to be super helpful. It's going to make it harder for you to stay cool, might make it harder for you to hunt successfully, to retain water because you're sweating so much, you're releasing heat in another way. And so that becomes not beneficial in that ecosystem. So as ecosystems change over time, that creates opportunities where different organisms within a species might have traits that are more beneficial to them than they were in the past. So, for example, if we think about um, plants, okay? Let's think about like a grass plant. Okay. And a grass plant living in a desert environment is going to have beneficial traits like we've talked about cuticles before, right? On how those cuticles are those thick, waxy coatings on the leaf blade itself that helps to retain water. Okay. So if we go from a desert and for whatever reason, climate shift over time, that desert becomes less arid and more moist, and it slowly develops into an area that's more like a rainforest. Okay, leaves of our blades of grass that have those really thick cuticles could become disadvantageous because they're keeping so much water in, they might start to rot over time. Okay, water is good. Too much water is not good for plants, for animals, also for people. Don't overhydrate. Okay. So over time, what's advantageous can change. And so changes in an ecosystem create opportunities for one trait that maybe wasn't super helpful before to suddenly become really important. And so the organisms with that trait have longer lifespans, they produce more offspring, their offspring get that trait. The organisms with disadvantageous traits don't have as many offspring, which means the next generation has more of the good trait and less of the now not good trait. And that continues over time for lots of generations. Okay. Hope that answered your questions. If you have any other questions, please let me know. If you haven't already submitted your study guide, please make sure you do that ASAP. The goal of having those due Sunday was so that I could grade them Monday and get them kicked back to you so you have them to look over before your test. If you haven't gotten that done yet, make sure you take care of that and get it submitted. If you feel like, hey, I don't feel like I'm ready to take that test without that feedback, switch your dates. Instead of doing your test Tuesday and your journals Wednesday, go outside on Tuesday, do your journal, and come back and take your test Wednesday. It's not a big deal if you flip those around. If that works better for you, gives you more time to get some feedback, ask some questions, totally fine. Okay. Also, don't forget you can check in with me Monday, Wednesday, and this week Thursday, because technically Friday is a no school day, from 10 a.m. to noon. I'll have the links posted each of those days for you to hop onto our Zoom and ask questions, get some feedback in real time rather than waiting for an email. Okay. Hope you guys are well. Hope you're being safe. Take care. I miss you, and I'll talk to you later.